In a valley in Norway, balls of light rise out of the ground, hover and vanish. And after 40 years of instruments pointed at them, no one can say what they are. In New Mexico, hundreds of people hear a low hum that no microphone has ever recorded. And at number 3, there is a forest where hundreds of trees all bend the same way in one exact spot and nowhere else. And the reason has been lost. These are not ghost stories. Every place on this list is real, studied by scientists, and still unexplained. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you will see exactly where human knowledge runs out. We live in an age that feels completely mapped. Satellites see every corner of the planet, and it is easy to believe there is nothing left we cannot explain. But unexplained does not mean supernatural. It means the honest edge of what we know. A real place, with real data, where the numbers do not add up, and the experts still disagree. And stay until the end, because number 1 is the deepest hole humanity has ever drilled. And what stopped it shows how little of our own planet we have ever truly touched. We begin in the mountains of Norway. Number 10, the Hessdalen Lights. In a quiet valley in central Norway, since at least the early 1980s, people have watched glowing spheres of light appear in the air. Sometimes white, sometimes yellow, sometimes flashing blue, they can hang motionless for over an hour or shoot across the valley in seconds. This is not folklore passed down in a pub. Since 1984, scientists have studied the valley with cameras, radar, and spectrometers. And since 1998, an automated station has watched it around the clock. The lights show up on radar. They register on cameras and spectrometers. Whatever else they are unmistakably real, and they have been recorded again and again for 4 decades. What no one can fully explain is what produces them. The leading idea is that the valley works like a giant natural battery. The rock on one side is rich in copper, the other in zinc, with a river running between them, and glowing dust of burning metals hanging in the air. It is a serious hypothesis, not a proven answer, and it does not yet account for everything the instruments record. That is what makes Hessdalen so unusual. This is not a mystery hiding from science. It is a mystery sitting still in full view of the cameras and still refusing to resolve. But the next place cannot be filmed at all. You can only hear it, if you are one of the few who can. Number 9, the Taos Hum. In the town of Taos, New Mexico, some people hear a sound that will not stop. A low, steady drone like a diesel engine idling somewhere just out of sight. It is worse indoors, worse at night, and for those who hear it, it can ruin sleep for years. The strange part is that most people hear nothing at all. In 1993, after residents brought their complaints to Congress, a team from Los Alamos and other labs came to investigate. They surveyed the town and found that only around 2% of people could hear it. And those who did heard it at slightly different pitches between 32 and 80 hertz. Then came the real puzzle. The scientists set up microphones, seismographs, and electromagnetic sensors across Taos. And while people were actively reporting the hum, the instruments recorded no matching sound at all. Something was being heard that nothing could measure. Similar hums have since turned up in Bristol, in Windsor, in Auckland. Some have been traced to distant machinery. Taos never was. A sound hundreds of people insist is real, that no microphone has ever captured. The gap between what we perceive and what we can prove has rarely felt so wide. But the next place breaks something even more basic than sound. It breaks your sense of direction. Number 8, Magnetic Hill. Just outside Moncton in eastern Canada, there is a stretch of road with a reputation that sounds impossible. Put your car in neutral at the bottom of the slope. Take your foot off the brake, and the car begins to roll uphill. Slowly, steadily, backward and up, against gravity. For nearly a century, this one hill has drawn crowds who cannot believe what their own eyes are telling them. Coasting up a hill should not be possible, so what is happening? Here, the honest answer is not a mystery at all. and that is exactly why it belongs on this list. Magnetic Hill is one of the most convincing examples on Earth of a gravity hill. A perfect optical illusion. The land around it, the tilt of the horizon, the lean of the trees and fences, all work together to hide the true horizon and make a gentle downhill look like a climb. With no level ground to compare against, your brain picks the wrong baseline, and a slope that drops away looks like a slope that rises. The car is simply rolling downhill exactly as gravity demands. The only thing in the scene that is broken is your own eyes. That is the unsettling lesson of Magnetic Hill. The phenomenon is completely real and completely misread. Proof that your senses can be fooled with total confidence, on solid ground, in broad daylight. The next place fools no one. It simply does something the textbooks say it should not. Number 7. Blood Falls. In one of the coldest, driest places on the planet, the McMurdo Dry Valleys of Antarctica, a glacier bleeds. From a crack in the wall of white ice, a deep red liquid pours out and stains the glacier the color of dried blood. When explorers first found it in 1911, they assumed red algae. They were wrong. The truth took a century to work out, and it is stranger than the sight itself. Sealed beneath the glacier is a lake of ancient salt water, trapped there for over 1 million years, with no light, no oxygen, and no contact with the outside world. The water is rich in iron. When it finally escapes through the crack and meets the air, the iron reacts with oxygen and rusts, instantly turning the flow blood red. It is not staining the ice. It is rusting in front of you. But here is the part that still unsettles scientists. That buried lake is not dead. It holds living microbes cut off from the sun for 1 million years, surviving by breathing iron and sulfur instead of light. And that matters far beyond Antarctica. If life can survive sealed under ice here, it strengthens the case for life beneath the ice of moons like Europa and Enceladus. A frozen desert with no sun and no air turned out to be one of the best places on Earth to imagine life on another world. But the next place does not hide its secret under ice. It writes it across an open desert floor in lines no one has ever seen move. Number 6. Racetrack Playa. In a remote corner of Death Valley, California, there is a flat, cracked lake bed where the stones move by themselves. Rocks weighing up to a few hundred kilograms sit at the end of long trails carved into the dried mud, as if they had been dragged across the ground. No footprints, no tire tracks. For decades, no one had ever seen a single one of them move. This was a genuine scientific mystery for most of a century. The trails were real, the rocks were real, and every theory, hurricane winds, thick sheets of ice, pranksters, fell apart under scrutiny. Then in 2014, researchers finally caught it happening, with time-lapse cameras and GPS trackers. The answer needed a rare, exact sequence. On winter nights, the playa floods with a thin layer of water, which freezes into ice as thin as a window pane. In the morning sun, that ice cracks into huge floating sheets, and the lightest breeze slides those sheets across the mud, pushing the rocks ahead of them. So slowly, the movement is almost impossible to see. For 70 years, the stones only moved when no one was watching. Not from magic, but because the perfect conditions almost never lined up with a person standing there to see it. The next place is a mystery science is still arguing about right now, and you can see it from space. We are halfway. Notice the pattern so far. Some of these places have been explained and turned out stranger than the myths. Others are still open. That is the honest map of human knowledge, and the places ahead sit right on its edge. You are about to see the one at number 3, the one I promised you. A forest of hundreds of trees, all bent the same way in one exact patch of ground where the cause has genuinely been lost. And at number 1, the deepest wound humanity has ever cut into the earth and the wall of heat that stopped us cold. But first, the circles no one can agree on. Number 5. The fairy circles. Across the grasslands of the Namib Desert in Namibia, the ground is dotted with millions of bare, circular patches ringed by taller grass, stretching to the horizon in an almost perfect polka dot pattern. Some are 2 meters across, some are 12. From the air, they look designed. They are not a legend, and they are not new. Scientists have studied them for over 50 years, and the argument over what causes them is one of the longest running in all of ecology. On one side, termites. One theory holds that sand termites eat the grass roots at the center of each circle, clearing the patch. And that competition between neighboring colonies spaces the circles out. On the other side, the plants themselves. A study published in 2022 tracked the grasses after rainfall and found they died within days of water stress with their roots undamaged. No sign of anything eating them. In this view, the grasses organize themselves, each ring draining the water from the bare center to survive, and the circles form from that competition alone. Both sides have real data. Neither has won. Think about what that means. One of the most striking patterns on the surface of the Earth, visible from orbit, studied for half a century. And the world's experts still cannot agree on what makes it. The next place is not a pattern in the grass. It is a patch of desert where people insist the normal rules seem to loosen. Number 4. The zone of silence. In the Mapimi Desert of northern Mexico, there is a stretch of barren land with a strange reputation. That radios fall silent there, that signals die, that compasses spin. The name itself, La Zona del Silencio, the zone of silence, promises that the modern world stops working. The legend has a real seed. In 1970, an American test missile went off course and crashed in this exact region, and the cleanup drew soldiers and scientists to a remote place most had never heard of. From that one strange event, the stories grew. Dead radios, spinning compasses, signals swallowed by the desert. And then researchers actually tested it. Radios worked normally, compasses pointed north. Careful measurements have never found a permanent dead zone anywhere in the Mapimi Desert. What is real is quieter and stranger in its own way. This remote basin is a hotspot for meteorite falls, pulling in rocks from space in unusual numbers, and it holds a rare desert ecosystem that biologists study closely. But here is the part that should unsettle you. The silence was never real, and it did not matter. The legend spread across the world anyway, repeated in books, in films, in millions of retellings, until the story was far bigger than the place. One missile crash and a haunting name were enough. And once the story existed, no measurement could ever kill it. Ask yourself how many things you believe for exactly that reason. But the next place is the opposite. Its mystery is completely real and still unsolved. Number 3. The one I promised you. The Crooked Forest. In a small patch of woodland near Gryfino in western Poland, there stand roughly 400 pine trees that all share the same impossible shape. Each trunk erupts from the ground and immediately bends into a sharp, sweeping curve, a near-perfect J hooking north at the base before straightening and rising tall toward the sky. And here is what makes it uncanny. Every tree bends the same way. Every trunk curves in the same direction with the same arc at the same height. And they were all planted around the same time in the 1930s. Then, just past the edge of this one grove, the forest is completely ordinary. Straight trees in every direction as far as you can see. Whatever bent these 400, it happened here, and only here. So what could do this? A tree bends like this when something interrupts its growth young, while the trunk is still soft and then lets it recover. Heavy snow that pinned the saplings down, grazing animals, a disease. But none of those explain the precision. Why every single tree curves the same way, in the same narrow band, when nothing outside the grove was touched. The most widely accepted idea is that it was done on purpose, that farmers in the 1930s deliberately bent the young trees perhaps to grow naturally curved wood for boat hulls, furniture, or plow handles, and shaped this entire grove by hand. It is the best explanation we have, but there is a problem the theory cannot escape. Whatever those farmers intended, they were interrupted. The Second World War tore through this region. The people who worked this land were scattered or gone, and every record of what they were doing and how and why vanished with them. The technique died with the hands that used it. That is what makes the crooked forest unforgettable. The trees are still standing, still curved, still perfectly aligned after 90 years. A question mark 400 trees wide, holding its shape long after everyone who knew the answer was gone. We can stand inside the answer, walk through it, touch it, and still never be told what it means. The next place is not a lost human secret. It is a place where the earth itself makes a sound no one can fully explain. Number 2. The Badain Jaran Desert. In a remote corner of Inner Mongolia in northern China stand the tallest sand dunes on the face of the earth. Some rise more than 460 meters from base to crest, taller than the Empire State Building. And they do not drift and wander like normal dunes. They stay almost perfectly still, and they sing. On the slopes of these giant dunes, the sand gives off a deep, steady roar. A low tone loud enough to carry for kilometers, rising from the mountain of sand as if the desert itself were humming. That much scientists can measure. What they still argue about is why. One team says the sound comes from countless grains sliding in near-perfect time with each other, locking into a single shared note. Another says the whole dune acts like a giant natural loudspeaker, its dry upper layer trapping and amplifying the sound. Both have published and neither has won, and no one can yet say why some dunes sing while identical-looking ones next to them stay silent. And then there is the water. Scattered between these singing mountains lie more than 100 lakes, some a vivid blue, others turned pink and green by the tiny life inside them. In one of the driest deserts on Earth where almost no rain ever falls, no one is certain where all that water comes from. The leading idea is that it rises from deep underground, carried through hidden cracks in the rock from mountains hundreds of kilometers away, but the true source is still debated. The tallest dunes in the world singing a note we cannot fully explain, standing over lakes that should not be there, but none of these prepare you for what comes last. Number 1. The Kola Superdeep Borehole. On a remote peninsula in the far northwest of Russia near the border with Norway, there is a rusted metal cap bolted to the ground barely wider than a dinner plate. It seals the deepest hole human beings have ever drilled into the earth. In 1970, Soviet scientists began drilling with a single audacious goal: to punch straight through the Earth's crust and reach the mantle below. They drilled for over 20 years, and in 1989 the main hole reached its final depth, 12,262 meters, more than 12 kilometers straight down. Deeper than Mount Everest is tall, deeper than the Mariana Trench, and still they had drilled only about a third of the way through the crust. Now you may have heard the story that they drilled into a hidden chamber and recorded the screams of the damned, the so-called well to hell. Let me be clear, that is a hoax invented years later. What the Kola borehole actually found is stranger because it is true, and it quietly overturned what geologists expected. They expected the granite to give way to basalt a few kilometers down. It never did. The boundary the textbooks predicted simply was not there. They found liquid water free in the rock, kilometers deeper than anyone thought possible, squeezed out of the minerals themselves. And they found microscopic fossils of ancient sea life 6 kilometers down, in rock over 2 billion years old. But the deeper they went, the more the Earth fought back. The rock grew hotter than any model had predicted. At the bottom, the temperature hit 180 degrees Celsius, so hot that the rock stopped behaving like solid stone and began to flow slowly like plastic, closing the hole around the drill as fast as they could cut it. And there, humanity simply stopped. Not because we lost interest, but because the planet would not let us go any further. Think about the scale for a moment. That hole, the deepest wound we have ever cut into our own world, reaches down 12 kilometers. The center of the Earth is over 6,300 kilometers below your feet. We have not even scratched it. Everything we know about the deep interior of our planet, the mantle, the outer core, the solid heart at the center, we know secondhand from earthquakes and echoes. No human tool has ever touched it. The greatest unexplained place on Earth is not a haunted forest or a silent desert. It is the more than 99% of our own planet that lies beneath our feet, sealed behind a wall of heat that we have never seen and may never reach. So that is the list. 10 places sitting right on the edge of what we can explain, some solved and stranger for it, some still wide open. Share your thoughts in the comments and let me know which country you're watching from. I enjoy reading what you think, and if the edge of the known pulls at you, next time we go looking for what lies beneath the streets. Top 10 hidden underground cities. Subscribe so you don't miss it.